Greetings, curious minds and knowledge seekers. Today we'll delve into the life of a man whose ideas rocked the established world, whose words fueled revolutions, and whose fate was full of tragedy and paradox. Get ready because I'm going to tell you the story of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a thinker ahead of his time, and a man whose life was just as captivating as his theories.
Jean-Jacques Rousseau. His name sounds like a challenge, like a call for freedom and justice. But who was he really? A philosopher? A writer? A composer? A rebel? Or just a man searching for truth in this complex and contradictory world? He was born in Geneva in the distant year of 1712. His mother died in childbirth, leaving him in the care of his father, a watchmaker and a passionate lover of literature. It was his father who instilled in young Jean-Jacques a love for reading, a love that would be decisive in his life. They read novels, historical chronicles, and biographies of great people together. Even as a child, Rousseau was immersed in a world of ideas, a world where good and evil, justice and injustice fought for dominance. However, the happy childhood did not last long. When Jean-Jacques was only 10 years old, his father was forced to flee Geneva, leaving his son in the care of relatives. This was the first blow of fate, the first lesson in loneliness and alienation. Rousseau changed several professions. He was a scribe, an engraver, a lackey. He wandered through towns and villages, changing masters and beliefs. But wherever he was, whatever he did, thoughts, questions, and doubts always swarmed in his head. He eagerly absorbed knowledge, read books, argued with friends. He was looking for answers to the most important questions: what is man? What is the meaning of life? How to build a just society? At the age of 30, Rousseau found himself in Paris, the very center of the intellectual life of France. He met famous writers and philosophers, such as Diderot and D'Alembert, and took part in the creation of the famous Encyclopedia. It was in Paris that he wrote his first works, which brought him fame and glory. His treatise, Discourse on the Sciences and Arts, had the effect of a bombshell. In it, Rousseau argued that the progress of science and art did not lead to an improvement in morals, but on the contrary, made people more hypocritical and selfish. He called for a return to the natural state, to simplicity and virtue. This was followed by Discourse on the Origin and Foundations of Inequality Among Men, in which Rousseau argued that inequality is the result of the development of civilization and not the natural state of man. He argued that in the natural state, people were equal and free, but with the advent of private property, inequality arose, which led to exploitation and oppression. These works made Rousseau famous, but also earned him many enemies. His ideas seemed too radical, too dangerous for the established order. He was accused of undermining the foundations of the state and religion, but Rousseau did not give up. He continued to write and preach his ideas. He published his famous novel, Emile, or On Education, in which he set out his views on raising children. He argued that a child should be brought up in accordance with his nature, develop his natural abilities, and not be forced to accept other people's opinions and beliefs. He wrote On the Social Contract, in which he proposed his theory of a just state. He argued that the state should be based on the general will of citizens, on the voluntary agreement of all members of society. He called for democracy and self-government. But the more fame and recognition Rousseau gained, the more his loneliness and alienation grew. He felt misunderstood and rejected. He was persecuted by enemies, accused of heresy and undermining the foundations of the state. He was forced to flee France and wander around Europe. He suffered from paranoia. It seemed to him that everyone around him was plotting against him. He became suspicious and distrustful. He lost friends and loved ones. He spent the last years of his life in loneliness and poverty. But even in the most difficult moments, he never stopped believing in his ideals, in his dream of a just and free society. He continued to write, continued to preach his ideas. He left behind a huge legacy that had a huge impact on the development of European culture and politics. And so, in 1778, Jean-Jacques Rousseau passed away. He died at the age of 66, leaving behind many questions that we are still trying to answer. But did you know that a few months before his death, Rousseau wrote a letter to his friend in which he confessed a terrible secret? A secret that explains much in his life, in his character, in his work. He confessed that he himself was the product of an illegitimate relationship. His mother, who died in childbirth, was married to another man, and his father was an influential Geneva politician. This secret, which Rousseau kept all his life, explains his feeling of alienation, his rebellious spirit, his desire for freedom and justice. He was an outcast, a man without family or tribe, a man who had to prove his right to exist, and he proved it. He became one of the most influential thinkers in human history, a man whose ideas still inspire us to fight for freedom and justice.
This is the complex and exciting story of the life of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. I hope you found it interesting. If so, then give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and write in the comments about whom else you would like to learn about. See you soon.